What's that sound? It's for amusement only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Tonight I wanted to talk about Bally's 1979 Tahiti. Now, if you've been listening for a while or following along in the chronological list of Bally's bingos, you'll notice that I skipped over Nashville and Dixieland. Well, that's because I've actually talked about Nashville and Dixieland on their own dedicated episodes some time ago. I've also talked about them with Vic Camp on an episode called Strictly Six Cards. So check out those shows if you'd like more information about those fantastic six-card games. Those are the most complex and featureful of the EM six cards. So, Tahiti is actually a game that is a bit controversial. It's controversial because there are bingo players that love this game, absolutely head over heels in love with this game, and then there are bingo players that really, really dislike this game. And I've heard of people in the former camp, but I know some folks in the latter camp, and I've always been curious as to what made this a stinker to them. So let's see if we can find out together. Alright, Tahiti is a 20-hole bingo. In fact, it was the last 20-hole bingo that Bally produced. So, in typical bingo pinball fashion, you drop in your first quarter, the game will reset, it'll set you to your default odds, and at that point you can either shoot your ball and play for default odds, or you can insert any number of quarters up to 40 per game to try and increase your odds and features. This game does not have pick-a-play, and that means that for each coin, the game will search and try to find a particular thing to step up. So let's talk about odds. Your main goal in a bingo pinball machine is to try and earn the maximum number of replays per game. So by default, if you get 3 in a section, you'll win 4 replays, 16 for 4 in a section, and 80 for 5 in a section. The odds go all the way up to 192 for 3 in a section, 480 for 4 in a section, and 600 for 5 in a section. As far as features go, any of the different colors, of which there are 4, can be doubled. So your maximum win is going to be 1,200 replays for 5 in a section, with your odds all the way up at max, obviously. So your different sections are red, yellow, green, and blue, and like many of the 20-hole games, Tahiti brings back mystic lines. Because there is no inline scoring on the Mystic Lines games, on the 20-hole games, Bally had to come up with something different, and that is section scoring. So, the section scoring, if you'll recall, I've talked about before on Magic Screen games, and by default, you have an inline scoring setup, and you can reveal the section scoring setup, while on the Mystic Lines games, there's only section scoring. So, the numbers that you have to hit don't correspond with numbers that you would see vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. They're oddly shaped sections. And in these sections, one number in each section is white with the color of the section in a star. These are called star zones, and by default, they give you absolutely nothing. So, if you get 3 in a section, including the star zone, you don't win. You have to get 3 in a section without the star, and you only get the star awarded as part of your replays that you earn if it is the 5th number that you earn. So, the star zones can be treacherous. To mitigate this, Bally added the Mystic Lines. The Mystic Lines allow you to move columns of numbers. The B column will swap the leftmost 2 columns totally. So one will move into the second position. The A column allows you to move the center column up and down 1 position. And then the C columns allow you to swap the rightmost two columns positions. Now, what makes Tahiti interesting is that instead of awarding you A, then B, then C, as is typical with the Mystic Lines games, it can award you in any order. So you can get C first, you can get B first, or you can get A first. That's interesting. Typically, the Mystic Lines are a big help if you have A, B, and C lit, of course, allowing you to move every number on the Backglass. If you only had C lit, that would be interesting in a certain subset of situations. So that would be interesting to try. This is the only game that did this. By default, the game will lock you out of moving those numbers before shooting your fourth ball, but you can earn, through more credits of course, before fifth or even after fifth. This game has no extra balls, so that after fifth is very desirable. This game brings back any 4 stars, but instead of adding the red letter game, as many of the other Mystic Lines games did, especially the later ones, you only get score for the star zones, and only if that feature is lit. So if you have all 4 star zones, it scores 100. Now, in order to soften the blow, Bally added any 3 star zones, and in this case, it scores 25. So Bally must have thought that getting those star zones would be pretty easy. And the reason why is because of this next feature, the ball return. Now, you've heard about this before with games like Palm Springs and Surf Club, if you've been listening for a while. Those games would allow you to return any of the odd or even numbered balls. In this case, you can return either the columns indicated by B on the Backglass or the columns indicated by C. And that is also very interesting because let's say that I'm shooting for the blue section. The blue section is shaped like a boomerang in the bottom left corner of the Backglass. The 2 columns that don't have any numbers in the blue are the rightmost 2 columns or the letter C. So if I'm shooting for blue, let's say I get 3 in the blue and I really want 5, but the other 2 numbers that I hit are in the green or the red over on the rightmost 2 columns. Well, I return C, and then I have the chance to shoot those last 2 again and try and hit the blue. That's a really powerful feature, and that's probably why Bally removed the extra balls feature from this game. On top of that, that's probably why the any 3 or 4 stars value is so low, because Bally gives you the opportunity to try again without inputting any additional credits after you start your game. So, from a feature standpoint, I think Tahiti is very interesting. From a gameplay standpoint, of course I can't comment because I haven't played one. I would love to hear from people on both sides of the argument, though. Especially someone who really loves Tahiti. I would love to talk to them. Because it appears that this game gives you a fairly decent advantage. The biggest disadvantage is the very low scoring potential. You know, you don't get the thrill of winning 2,400 replays off a single game. You know, the max you can win is 1,200, and I'm sure that's a very rare event that it lights double and you have max odds. So, let's talk about artwork. Tahiti's Backglass has a Tahitian kind of theme. In the corners of the Backglass at the top left and top right, you have a flower. It appears to be an orchid. And then the B, A, and C for the Mystic Lines are seashells. On the left and right side of the bingo card, you have 2 women. And then there's a woman's face close up in the middle right of the Backglass. In the bottom left, you have ivy and ferns underneath the replay register and to the left of the odds. There are more seashells and orchids spread throughout, and the background is green. So looking at the cabinet, you have a woman's face stenciled on the side of the cabinet, and her head is sitting on top of these fern leaves. The same leaves adorn the side of the head, but there is a flower which is just a hair above center. The background of the cabinet is yellow. And then on the playfield, you have two women left and right, kind of standing in a fern. And up at the top of the playfield, you have an orchid. And then you have bamboo, which is kind of constructed around each of the holes on the playfield, making them look like structures which were created there. And that's pretty cool looking. I'd really like to give Tahiti a try one day and judge for myself, just how much of an advantage that ball return feature is versus what Bally removed in this game. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, this was the last of the 20-hole games that Bally produced. And we are closing in on the last of the games that Bally produced in the bingo line. There's only 2 more before they close up bingo production for good. Well, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, also at Bingo Podcast, or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.